been taken down and it is on a correct elevation so that we don't have to, and we own the land.
Where is
So
it?
we don't have to buy. It's where the boat launch is on Springtown Road.
That's not in the floodplain? That-
Who says it's not?
Still
I,
in that area where the picnic tables are.
That's what I was thinking, yeah. That area, yeah.
It's just barely out.
it's barely out, but it's out.
It's still mapped by FEMA as being in, so we'd have to be able to go through the process of making sure we take it out.
Right.
Still, we were talking before having to buy land off the Walk Hill.
And
That is no longer true.
We would have
We
to,
own it.
we would have to expand that pad, for lack of a better word, right? Or would there be costs, not landscaping, literally, just the construction costs? We could fit it on that footprint though? Or would we have to add onto the hill?
I'm not an engineer.
He is though.
I can't speak for that.
Okay.
That's what we're doing there.
All right.
I'd have to look at that. I mean, it's still in the floodway. It's beyond, it's worse than being in the floodplain. And talking with FEMA, anything that's in the floodway is just,
Well,
don't do it for
but it
time-wise.
is something that we need to ascertain, because at the last meeting, it was, we thought that the pumping station was in the floodplain, it is not. And that we would then, if we wanted to do the Walk Hill, would have to buy land and put, okay, but that isn't true right now. The land belongs to the village now.
right.
Okay.
The reason I didn't look at that is because of the FEMA maps that shows that it's still in.
What's the difference between a floodway and a floodplain?
Floodway is a place that you don't build. I mean, it's kind of, you don't do anything in there because it's kind of the
It's in the
channel.
way of the flood.
Right, it's the channel that's reserved so that the flood can pass through. The floodplain is you're going to get water in that area, but it's not something that
Right.
necessarily can't be blocked. Anytime you're building in the floodplain, you gotta show that there's no increase in water elevation and no velocity increase.
Mm.
And
So
and we
it's-
can check that, but at
Really
least
important to see
it's a
that,
possibility.
right?
Wait, it's a possibility. What is the restriction from the FEMA, or if it's not a restriction, an obstacle from the FEMA point of view from building in the floodway, if this is in the floodway?
So the floodway, they basically said, don't even try. I mean, they said it's possible. It's not impossible. We did some work on the Bronx River that had a lot of political pressure, and I met some FEMA people on that, people that actually process the applications and know how long it takes. That took 9 months, and that had quite a bit of pressure. And they said 9 months is about as good as you'll get. As hard as it's pressed, there's just their process that has to go.
Well, Rich and Blue both have the current FEMA maps.
I have it right here also, floodway
Okay.
map.
And so if, in fact, that old pumping station that no longer exists is not in that
There's a way to,
floodway,
correct FEMA maps. There's a process for that, and that's much shorter.
and that's what,
Much shorter,
well,
but you do
whatever,
have to
whatever
document.
way, we don't know the answer, let's find out the answer.
We did talk to, as I said, to FEMA, we talked to the Corps of Engineers. Corps of Engineers said, do whatever you can to stay in a nationwide permit. If it's an individual permit, you don't want to do it. It's just, I mean, it's a long,
What's that mean?
nationwide permits are permits that they have already decided that if you do things a certain way, that you get an automatic permit. If you do it above and beyond the thresholds that are set in that nationwide permit, then you go for an individual permit, and it's looked at as a brand new project that doesn't have anything that they can compare to it. So it takes quite a bit of time. The intake here, I certainly believe we could get under the nationwide permit.
Okay.
The DEC said that the intake design would have to be coordinated with the Fish and Wildlife. US Fish and Wildlife said the same thing, but that's part of their DEC process. They said that they could finish their internal permitting process in the best conditions in about 6 months. SHPO said that it is in an archaeologically sensitive area, so we would have to do shovel tests on a 50-foot grid, any place that we're going to disturb. I looked at this, kind of the bottom line is I looked at this and I tried to find out if there was anything in the permits that looked like it was going to be less than what was shown in that 39 to 43 months. And I really couldn't find it in there. I think that 39 to 43 months is accurate. If the boat or the old pump station property is out of the floodway, can be mapped out of the floodway, that will shorten that by part of FEMA's timeframe.
And the archaeological dig too, because you're using an old foundation that's already been disturbed.
This is much bigger than an old foundation for this.
You mean the footprint?
Right?
Okay.
I'm not particularly concerned about the time frame because it's not our time frame. This is what DEP would like to see happen. But we can't move forward until we find a good option. So I don't really feel a lot of time pressure. I mean, I want to be respectful as much as possible, but I don't really feel bound by what DEP says they need to do, given the delays they put into their own projects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it really comes down, and I'm looking at this right, we really only have 3 options, and only 3. 2 really. Assuming, because I think there's no one who would argue against it, we do the village reservoir improvements just as a matter of course, no matter what. If we're conservative, that gives us 158 million gallons per minute. 158 million?
158.
158, yeah, that 158 million would be a lot of water.
Yeah.
158 gallons per minute.
The Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, exactly. Now we need to get to 610. We can do that with the town of Lloyd, but none of us want to do that because it opens up development to 299, so that's off the table. There's only 2 other ways to get to 610. One is Village Reservoir plus Wallkill River gets us to 610, or Village Reservoir and Plains Road and the Plesser property.
Right.
That's the only, because anything else would involve the Wallkill, and if we're going to do the Wallkill, we wouldn't bother doing any of the others because we can provide all of it.
It's either the Wallkill.
It's either the Wallkill or everything else.
Yeah.
And I'm not as excited about as much as I don't like the idea of the conversations I'm going to have if we end up drinking the Wallkill. I look at the Plesser property and I see it's twice as expensive, $2 million per 100 gallons per minute instead of about $1 million per 100 gallons per minute.
Yeah.
It provides us the least, and there are some other expenses with Plains Road, such as the property acquisition and the cost of the new connections and all that. But I don't think that would be meaningfully inflate these. I mean, am I missing something, or is it really as simple as we're going to do the village reservoir improvements no matter what, and then we choose either the Wallkill or Plains Road plus Plesser?
You don't need Plesser to do Plains
We can't get to
Road.
610.
Yes, you can, because you have your own reservoir.
558. It doesn't. That gets us close to 610 conservatively.
Dave?
I'm using the lower number up top, not the
Okay.
higher number.
Dave recommended that with conservation and all of that stuff, that we would get 228 gallons.
Sally wangled that out of me last time.
I did. I wheedled it out of him.
There went my safety
So
back.
it was 228. We need 610. Plains Road
But
would give us.
Where does that conservation number come from, Dave? This is people taking fewer showers, not watering the lawn? Like what?
It's
The shale thing. What do you call those things you were going to put in?
there's an average that conservation programs that are in effect.
It
It
seems
goes between 5% and 15%. It's really the community that's going after that 5%. This is 30 gallons per minute.
it seems very risky to me. To
Conservation.
It
I
is-
We're
think
going to
is-
declare
it
a
is-
day a week,
it's
no
risky.
showers, no dishwashing, no nothing.
No, you don't have to do that. There are plenty of places in the United States that are not as progressive as we pretend to be, that have already implemented serious conservation efforts, and they have saved 5 to 15% of their previous water usage. We could, if we were serious, implement a conservation effort that could save, let's say, the least 5%.
But to
I'm
what
not
end?
disagreeing, but what I'm saying is that between Plains Road and our reservoir, that's 628. The magic number is 610. Wallkill River will give us 610, period, the end.
I have no question. Everybody knows that the Wallkill could give you 610.
But Jason's point is that that's what we're really down to, those two issues. And that's what we said at the end of last meeting.
If the cluster were in the groundwater, then we're more than we need.
Much more. But the Plesser property, for as little as we're going to get from it, the expense is,
Double.
Yeah.
It's just
and the
exactly
ground
double.
information, the digging up a state highway,
GPM.
Yeah, million for
it's just beyond, and that property's gonna be developed privately, and I don't see the advantage.
Excess water is the 100. Right now, we would get a lot more than that in that first shutdown period,
Right.
because they won't be operational.
But I'm looking at the big picture, as you know.
So so basically, so you're saying there's 3 options, not 2.
Yep,
There's the Wallkill River alone.
yep.
There's Plains Road plus Plesser property, and then there's Plains Road plus conservation program.
I don't think the conservation program
Plus
would,
reservoir.
if you're,
Right. All of those assume we're doing the reservoir improvements no matter what.
conservation program, I'm gonna say modestly, we could achieve in time, in a couple of year period, say a 2-year period, a 5% reduction in usage.
You don't think it's good for an acute situation like this, where we have
I-
targeted
I
timeframes?
would worry about it for an acute situation.
Yeah.
We weren't,
So would I.
we were talking about 228 gallons in our own reservoir if we do the improvements that Dave recommended.
Well, 158 to 225.
But the
Conservation was above,
225 here says that it varies depends on the aqueduct shutdown period.
right,
Right.
It does.
So that number there is only in reference to the dates, not, or does that include conservation?
And should we just
No,
take the
no.
lower number to be
That's
conservative
the dates.
anyway?
Look,
The first shutdown in the fall is the 158.
Okay. I
The
see.
one in the spring is the 225.
Ah,
we have more rain, we have more water, and you can have a greater security in the amount of water available in the reservoir system in the spring than you can in the
No.
fall.
So then where's that 228 number coming from?
228 was what, if we put those swale things in, what-
Flashboards and take the sediment out of the
whatever,
pond.
all those technical things that Dave was talking about at the last meeting,
Right,
which
the
would
reservoir
improve
improvements.
Yeah, the reservoir
capacity.
improvements.
That's where the 228, as I recall, came in. The conservation that Tom is talking about is above and beyond that
Yes.
228.
Right.
So, 228 plus 400
So
is 628 gallons, and we don't need the Plesser property at all.
The 228 is just the true high end of this.
The 228 is assuming that we can get more performance out of the reservoirs
Okay,
because of the
okay.
improvements.
Yes.
But nothing to do with the conservation.
No.
No.
That's what
I thought that's
Yeah.
what
No.
people were
It
getting.
doesn't- it has nothing to do with the
Where are
conservation.
you guys getting that from? Okay.
Yeah.
Look,
Ron,
Is there-
could you just detail for me, at least, what your best estimate is for the fall season, for the first shutdown, that we would get if we did all of the improvements in the reservoir? So we dredged it, we flash watered it, and we managed it differently by having the piping system that ran from the top to the bottom so that we could empty it and anticipate, and all of it. What's the best estimate of what we would get in the fall shutdown?
My estimate would be 50 gallons per minute more
50 more than what?
than the 158.
So 208.
208.
208.
all right. right, so
2 gallons or 610.
I guess one way to approach this might be, is there anything, well, I haven't heard anyone say anything, but is there anything about the Plains Road or Wallkill that throws that off the table? Because that would make the decision for us. It sounds like the Wallkill has a lot more hoops to jump through, but it could feasibly provide us a permanent,
It's gonna be long-term more costs because
Yeah.
of the treatment costs.
How much more?
Please, this is not an open session. There are lots of important things. This is not an open session, man.
we're gonna have public comment in a few minutes, and you can ask your questions then, if you wouldn't mind.
It just seems to me that if my superintendent of public works is correct, and he hasn't failed me yet on answers to my questions, if we can, in fact, build on non-floodway, okay, that's one hoop jumped. Then the archaeological is easily done. I think it was done in a month on Hasbrook Park. Okay, when we did the drainage there, we had to go through all of that nonsense. That's 1 month. The real trick is gonna be the Department of Health and DEP, or DEC, right? And
Department
their
of Health.
corollary wildlife game rope.
Department of Health
Fish and
hasn't
Wildlife.
yet said that we can use the Wallkill River. They have to have that 12 months of sampling,
And when is our 12 months of sampling up?
January.
January. And how are we doing so far? You said that it looked pretty good.
It's treatable.
It's treatable.
It's got some, summertime is some pretty.
It's the worst. Okay. But that, everything that was found in the summer is treatable.
Everything's treatable.
Everything's, in fact, you said as you began, all of this is gonna have to be treated anyway. The extent of the treatment is
As an
different.
example, disinfection is needed for the groundwater supplies.
Sure.
That's all that's needed for the Plains Road well because it's that clean.
Mhm.
For the Wallkill River, there's a lot to be treated there.
Mhm.
And all of that takes a lot of energy, chemicals, it
Mhm.
takes manpower.
Mhm.
It's more costly long-term, let me put it that way.
Maybe.
Might get people
So-
excited about cleaning it up.
Excuse me, I'm hearing it's more costly long-term, not maybe, really. It's really more costly.
No, because-
No, it's really more costly long-term. That's what I'm hearing our consultant say, not maybe, really.
Riverkeeper says that if we clean up and find out where some of the sources of the problems in the Wallkill are, it will become cleaner.
Oh, I have
That's
no
what I
doubt
mean.
I have no doubt that that's true.
Okay, so.
But
it
how, that's
could
gonna,
be in
that's
the
a 50,
future.
look, the Hudson River also is cleanable. It's taken 50 years to get us where we are now, and we're nowhere near clean.
But it's treatable.
It's treatable,
Okay.
but it takes a lot of treatment, and it's more costly than a chlorine drip, by a lot.
As the river is right now, it will be more costly long term. But I hear what you're saying, Sally, and I think that this could shed a lot of light on why we need to clean up the Wallkill and give a lot of attention to the fact that this is something that our community should be doing. I saw the email, Jason.
And
You know, and I think that's a worthwhile. I think that this would create a worthy cause of cleaning up the river.
Well,
do we have projected
Chairman.
costs for the Wallkill, for a treatment plant, for the pumping of the water up the mountain? Do we have any sense of,
From the Phase 1 report,
mhm,
based on the pumping down by the river and then pumping it up to the pump station at the aqueduct, 5.7 million.
5.7 million to build the plant, to,
That was just for the pump and the
Construction.
pipeline that went up the hill. It was, everything was gonna be
It's that
treated
third box
at
there.
the water treatment facility.
why so expensive for a pump and pipe.
A lot of pipe.
There's a lot of pipe from the lesser property.
There's also, I would expect there's some rock along the way going up the mountain, which is gonna, some bedrock that's
Oh.
going to
That we'll
happen.
have to.
And what was this about the old
Excellent.
distribution main? Do you
It's,
get any more information? Or-
There's an old main, a 12-inch main, that they're not sure of what the condition is. If you could go through
You guys know anything about this?
that main and see if it's usable.
Blue and Rich are shaking their heads. Where's the main that would?
That's the oldest main that comes down.
There's a 12-inch main and an 8-inch main that comes out from the pump station.
Okay.
Currently, the 12-inch main was installed in 1968 when we built the steel 2 million gallon tank. That was when Henry W. Lewis was mayor. That is one of our main feeds. Now there's an older 8-inch main which runs up through Morningstar East Cannon Boulevard, which is very old and severely deteriorated.
It's the 8-inch.
It's 8-inch.
Yeah, we installed a new 8-inch main from the river up to Morningstar East, the 12-inch main, during our
1998.
yeah.
So the line the line that was decommissioned is not in usable shape.
No.
Okay. Guess that answers that one.
And
You
the current
couldn't force
existing line is
a
shown
pipe
here.
through it, Rich?
Excuse me?
You know, in some instances where you have a big pipe
Slip,
and it
slip lining.
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
A slip line through it?
Yeah, well, the 8-inch line's probably over 100 years old. It's cast iron pipe and probably highly tuberculated. We're having some minor problems with that now. The 12-inch main that was installed in 1968 is pretty much what is feeding the village now. And if anything, the 8-inch line would have to be replaced. It's too old and
No, but my question was, using the old cast iron pipe, slip lining through it, a new pipe,
in my professional judgment, that line needs to be replaced.
Needs
I
to be
don't
replaced.
think you can slip line it, and I don't think it can be big.
You also have about eight customers on that line also.
I didn't hear you, Blue.
You also have about 8 water users off that line.
You said that was an 8-inch line
Yes.
also.
That's an 8-inch.
Wouldn't be
not
big
big
enough.
enough.
It's not enough for the supply.
Just inquiring.
I want to go on record.
Okay.
I want to go on record that I support all the efforts to clean up the Wallkill. I applaud the mayor for his initial efforts to get this started. I applauded you
Thank you.
today in a message which you may not
I have
have
not seen it.
seen yet. And I will support all those efforts. That is not the same as my supporting a project here and now, while the Wallkill is in the condition it is in, that would draw the water from the Wallkill and have to be treated, not a little bit, but greatly and forever, as long as I'm going to be alive.
Well, I want to say, I do support using the Wallkill River, but I need cost projections for every option. And one of the things that I raised, if we do the Plains Road property, that, and I feel very strongly about this, that we also include in the cost, we talked about this at the last meeting, that we provide water, municipal water, to all Plains Road residents
Who won?
who want it and at the village water rate.
I would be fully in agreement
Okay.
with that. I have no issue with that whatsoever.
The cost of putting that improvement in is included in the Plains Road cost here.
It was already included.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, I would prefer the Wallkill because I think it is a long-term, known solution. We own the land, so we don't have a problem and the cost of accessing that. There was some disagreement as to how much doing the Wallkill would cost, and then it came up that in fact it would be less expensive because the new treatment plant that we're working on up there would treat it anyway.
Wouldn't be less expensive. They knew that at the time that they did the phase one report, that that equipment was going to be put in. It wouldn't have to be additional
Right.
equipment up there.
That's what I'm, so,
But
this-
but the cost factors that you're seeing already took that into account when the phase one project was done. And that was not done, as you know, by Dave, it was done by Larios and others.
Hazen and Sawyer.
so part of this is gonna come down to cost, it seems to me, and time.
Yeah, I have no doubt that we could make a reasonable case to go to DEP with the wall kill plus the reservoirs, which would run at a cost of $6,676,000,
Okay,
plus a few cents.
right,
Uh,
always few,
Always a few, knowing that it will cost the village money forever to treat that water significantly differently from other groundwater sources. But this is I do not believe that this is an unreasonable or irrational case to make. We've always said the wall kill was an option, was always on the table. If this is the choice of the board, then it's a choice that I would certainly be ready to defend.
okay, now, the projected cost for Plains Road with all of the qualifiers in is what?
Plains Road, the reasonable option that we have was
Right.
$4,643,527.
That's with pumps and everything.
Land plus municipal.
Well,
This is not an
Well-
open meeting, please.
Plus the rest of the set.
The only thing that doesn't include is the acquisition, the land
That's
acquisition.
correct.
And we don't have any any number for that.
The only thing I have on that is the fair market value of the land, and the owner is willing to go into eminent domain to determine what that is. He's willing to sell. I don't know what that price is.
And it's the whole thing, not just part,
We could buy part. I mean, he wants to sell the whole thing.
I know. So, add $1 million?
How
To
would
work
we get,
out
how would we
even
get
Steven.
the ongoing costs, which we don't have,
For treatment,
for the two
For
options,
the-
basically?
yeah.
Would
Well,
that something-
we have some information about the treatment cost for the groundwater in both sources that we've identified, the only two sources that we've talked about. And the treatment cost would be very low for the Plains Road source. The treatment we thought would be higher for Plesser because there was a sodium
Chloride.
issue before, but now that has evidently been, I don't know what happens. It's not as big an issue at this time.
Well, does it make sense to have environmental consultants give us, who would give us a price? Is this enough, I guess, is this enough information to get a price from our people about how much it would add to the budget every year? To address Tom's question and concern.
The water quality is all in that report. They will take a look at that and figure out what it's gonna take.
I mean, because Tom raises a good point. If Plains Road means it's an extra 10 grand a year in treatment costs, but the Wallkill is an extra 1.5 million, that's a big consideration. So
Right.
we need to know those numbers.
Yeah, but we don't know that without actually doing a pilot on the Wallkill River water. In order for approval for treatment projects, we have to run a pilot as we did for the upgrades to our water treatment
Right.
plant now. We did an actual pilot, we did two of them. We did one with the Paltz system, we did one with the Siemens system. And we determined that the Paltz system fit our application better. So in order to determine that, we have to do a pilot of the Wallkill River.
So we'd have to do a pilot before we could even know the annual costs this bears going into the future. And
There's
how
no
much
way
does
to guess at it?
how much does a pilot cost? How much did it cost us for
Fairly
the treatment plant?
inexpensive. The one for our water treatment plant was
I think it was like,
15,000.
but it takes time because you have to submit your findings in the report to the state health department. It has to be adopted by the state health department.
What kind of
And,
time are we talking?
We were talking,
Year?
yeah, a significant amount of time, I'd say 4 to 6 months for the pilot, and for the state health department to respond. We're dealing with Dr. Kim and the state health department. This is for the upgrade of the plant. And what Dave's talking about is using the same technology, but the full pilot plant, which is basically a trailer that have to be put down by the river, and that water would have to be treated by this, and sampling would have to be taken and submitted to the state health department. And a very lengthy report has to be submitted also. There's a lot.
But we must be able to get a ballpark figure, a range of cost. You know, it'll cost less than 5 million, more than 2. I don't know. But we must be able to narrow it down some way without doing a whole study. Yeah.
I think I can look and find some other plants that are somewhat similar, treating the river, and get a basis. I think.
Okay. Well, let's find out.
Can we look to the reports that have been done since January with the Wallkill River sampling? Could that be used as part of?
Reports
That
will,
It has to physically go through.
Filtered by this process. So
Yeah.
it's really apples and oranges.
Okay.
But that information is available, right? The information for the samples that you have already taken.
that's in the report.
It's in the report, right? So,
Right, I'm just wondering if that would.
If it's long-term using the river too, there's probably going to be some additional treatment that's going to happen up there, just because, again, the Paltz system will do a great job at this, but it's not meant to take out iron and manganese. There's cheaper ways to do that. Long-term, you'd want to take advantage of that, the other process.
All right. So what else? What do we need to know to move forward, and how are we moving forward?
how are we going to move forward?
Well, we need more. We need at least the annual costs for the Walker River and for Plains Road. Are we considering Plesser?
I'm not.
I don't think so.
I think that's out.
I would
Is that really out? Are we saying that we
I
don't
would not
need
vote
it?
to put it out.
Well, if we want, well, that's the thing.
Because the reservoir improvements, we're talking about the high end of that number, and we're talking about the high end of that number as well as conservation efforts. So I feel like we shouldn't just take that off the table without.
Yeah, I think I agree. I'd rather not use it, but
Then I really would be in favor of the Wallkill because it's the cheapest process to go for.
yeah.
If you do Plesser, reservoir improvement, and Plains Road, you're way over what it would cost to do the Wallkill River.
7 million
Even
one,
with permanent treatment.
7,153,980. To do those three, 7,153,980,
As opposed to 5.7 million.
as opposed to 5.7 million
Yep.
plus 376,408.
But Tom is right too that even if based on that alone, I think we'd all just say Walker River no brainer. But because we don't have the annual operating costs for the Wallkill, we don't know. We need to find out that hidden cost before we
Punto.
really move forward. And while Stelly, I agree that we should probably do the conservation efforts no matter what anyway.
That's what-
Yes.
But I think Tom is right when he said that those can take time to accrue. You know, that 228 gallons per minute could be saved, but not saved in the first 6 weeks, but saved after year 2 of a conservation program. Or, you know, it could take time to build up to the maximum savings.
I'm troubled by the Plesser property.
Oh, I am too.
It is too far away, it is too expensive.
It is.
The permitting processes by the state of New York, you talk about permitting for the Wallkill River. The permitting processes by the Department of Transportation is not overnight.
It's not overnight, but it's not the same as dealing.
So-
I just think the
Well,
cost,
The estimate on the Plesser is 20 to 22 months.
Mhm.
It's the shortest period of
no,
process.
that's the developing. That doesn't, that
That's
is,
permitting also.
That's
Sally.
permitting also.
Yeah.
it's not the digging up of the entire
Well,
state highway.
you know, we already have. I think we already have a direction here.
Design and construction.
Because the linchpin of the conversation right now is orbiting around the annual cost for the
Yeah.
Wallkill. So I guess Dave, you're gonna see if you can get us plant. Blue and Rich, could you at least talk to Chris, see if you can come up with a ballpark range, an educated guess for us? We're not gonna hold it to to the dollar on it, but just give
But
us an educated guess on the increase.
But Jason, part of the conversation, I believe, Dave has done the work, okay? He does not speak for the department, New York City Water. I think we need a meeting of this village board with New York City to see what they are willing to pay for.
Well, we're meeting with them when, tomorrow or next
No,
week? I can't
no,
remember.
not tomorrow.
Don't do that, Tom, we almost fell out of the
Next
chair.
Friday, next Friday.
If the
That was the
the assumption for that meeting is that we're ready to go and ask them at least for a ballpark of support. They're prepared for us to come and say, well, we think this option will work. Perhaps they would entertain this option or this option.
Right.
And we could then see, and we're not talking about having a chat within Nishad here. We're talking about going to the deputy commissioner of DEP. So we're at the penultimate point of decision making.
And I'm actually comfortable
But part
bringing
of
this
my
to that meeting.
decision making will be, is if they say we will pay the whole shooting match, then that's fine. Then that tells me what options I have.
Well, I think that they're gonna say, we're gonna pay as little as we can. Tell us what, what your
Well, right now,
decision
they
is.
haven't honored, or we haven't gotten the money for the
The
amendment.
amendment. I have some information on that, and I have
Yeah, but I don't
another motion prepared by our attorney for amendment number 2.
Dave, you
Right.
need to go, don't you?
So,
Okay, maybe Sally,
that doesn't-
if there's any last questions for Dave, he's gotta run to another meeting.
Do you have any questions on groundwater for Russell? Because Russell can answer those, I'm sure.
no, but I do wanna know, because I see it's here. Matthew, what does a water treatment plant cost?
We noticed you over there.
Yeah,
Sorry to do that to you, but.
Last plant we worked on was $20 million. So, I mean, there was big plants. I know New York City is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on their plants, so.
But we aren't in New York.
No, I'm not sure of the current technology. If there's a Paul, I can show you. What you
that's
guys-
one,
That's what
yes,
we're
that's what we're
looking
using. Yeah, that's what we're using, yeah.
Just, I don't know if I can speak here now, but, I looked at the data, I ran the Poughkeepsie plant for a long time. Wallkill River is very similar to Poughkeepsie's plant, so I think your first step should be looking at Poughkeepsie's data and getting an estimate from them for treatment. You're primarily looking at the Wallkill, I know right now you're gonna have a potential increase in your coagulant dosage, maybe a slight increase in your chlorine dosage. Beyond that, it's what the cost of a plant is. I can't answer that. I don't know what the issues are that you're dealing with per se. But I can tell you that the cost estimates for looking at treating this Wallkill River, I think a good place to look would be again Poughkeepsie. Okay, because
So
Poughkeepsie
we're in the ballpark,
has-
except for figuring out what it would cost annually.
I can tell you we just did a 6-inch main replacement in one of the communities I work with, and it was $180,000 for about 200 feet. So pipe is expensive. Westchester. So here in Ulster, it's a bit cheaper, but I think these guys can produce that data for you.
Thank you, Matt. Any other questions for Dave or Russell? Thank you, gentlemen, as
That's
always.
it.
Thank you for the work. I
Oh,
still
What are
wanna
we
know-
going, what are we going to bring to the meeting on the 14th?
Cupcakes.
And tea?
Yeah. No, what we're gonna bring to the meeting is just this conversation, I think is fair enough. And hopefully some information from our consultants on the
Okay.
annual operating costs. But I think it's fair to say that we've narrowed it down to this conversation. This is a no-brainer, this is a no-brainer, this is what we're discussing, and get their feedback.
Okay.
Can we get some agreement tonight, though? Okay, I think we ought to confine ourselves a little more tightly for Tom. I'm first in favor of the Wallkill, and secondly, Plains Road and our reservoir. I am not interested in Plesser.
I agree with Sally, and I just want to make another point on Plesser. We really can't look at it as anything other than temporary, because it is a property that is slated for development. We may be getting X amount of water from it now undeveloped, but once it is developed, we don't know what rate we would be able to continue to draw from there. So we can't consider it as anything other than
Back
temporary
of that 100 is the excess.
for now.
Right,
That's
because it's up to
considered-
180 if they're not.
You
That
were
considers
talking
the whole
about
Full
plan
nine.
is
flow
up and
development,
running.
right.
There's 170 or so that's there, that's available now, but there will be 100 excess.
Right, but you don't know if they may make some other arrangements in the future, someone else may be drawing off of that source.
And you
I
would
just-
have to pay for it. And
Right,
that
right.
is not in here. You would have to buy the water rates.
They,
That's
right
privately-
now, want to give the excess to the town.
To the town.
It's the town water district that has to be formed to be able to take that water.
So the town would
And
want
that's-
us
Pipe
to
it
pay.
in.
The town's not giving it to us.
You and the town need to talk about it.
Exactly.
Thanks, Dave.
Different topic.
RN, do you have something?
No, I, the Wallkill is my number one choice as of right now also. But of course, it does depend on what these numbers look like. But I think it's the best option for a permanent water source.
But do we agree? So that Tom can calculate this in. I mean, I know that in the Plains Road, it figured into the cost is the laying of the pipe. The exception is the property, the cost of the property.
That's the
So
only
that's
thing
it,
not
we have to
included, yeah.
realize that. But do we agree that if that is the preferred option, that we will give the residents on Plains Road the choice? And that they will be charged at
village water
the
rates.
village
Yeah, that's
water
fine.
rates?
That
Do
would
we
be-
agree on that?
That wouldn't be an issue.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
But we'll bring to them that the board is split on Plesser. There's some, I don't really want to spend too much time looking at Plesser until I know more about the Wallkill. If the Wallkill gets off the table for some reason, we don't have a choice anyway. So.
Right.
Right.
But for now, I think the Wallkill is the first one, we have to prove that that one doesn't work at this point, I think.
So I just want everyone to remember, I'm not going there alone, so it's not Tom going, the mayor is going.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm
Good.
bringing my helmet.
at two, it's better to sit on than to
Yeah.
squeeze.
All right, anything else about this?
But we do agree, Plesser's out.
Yes,
I don't.
No, we
agree.
don't agree on that.
I don't agree.
But
gonna bring
you're
our disagreement.
representing the board.
I understand that,
But
Okay.
but the board has not made a vote. I don't agree with
I
that.
will move that the Plesser property be taken out as in consideration of this process.
Is there a second? Second? All right, motion fails for lack of a second.
I think if we end up needing it, I think we
I
should
think-
just rule it out right now. Even if we agree that it's not ideal and it is, we would like to not
I would
have
rather dig a well in Hasbrook Park where there is water.
I agree with your line of thinking, but I think that we shouldn't remove it just yet.
And the spring is on SUNY property just across the street from the park, so dig there.
Right, so, and we never tested there, so.
Anyway, all right, moving on. Yeah,
one other consideration, if we are looking at the annual rates for the purification versus between the two systems or the two properties, another factor that we really need to look at is the cost of purchasing the land on Plains Road, because that also will factor into
Absolutely.
an annual expense.
Absolutely.
And is DEC willing to purchase that land for us, or is the village going to have to purchase
No,
it?
we don't have to purchase the land. We own the land.
No, the Plains Road.
At this time.
Oh, Plains
Yes.
Road, yes,
Yeah.
that has to be in, I agree
Yeah.
with
No, it
that,
does.
that has to be in the
Yeah.
calculation.
Absolutely has to be put in the calculation.
Yeah, I know you said $11 is what Sally had said, but I think
Anybody?
we should just look at its assessment and what the fair market value
that's
would
what,
be,
that's what
if that's what they're willing to sell it
We'll
as.
see.
and-
eminent domain means that a judge
Exactly.
would establish fair market
Right.
value, and he's going to go through that process, so. All right, we've got a couple of minor things that we'll put off to the end. I believe we're going to executive session to talk to our lawyers, or is that what's the opposite of regular session?
You want to take care of.
I know, I'm just trying to go see what else we have. We have public comment,
Well,
we have
Yes, yeah,
executive session, it's on the agenda, and that's it, I believe.
and we need the
At some
approval.
point you want
Oh, no, we have a motion
We have
for
two.
you to be able to sign
the
for
amendment
Amendment
number
2.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right, all in
It's the
favor?
resolution for
Aye.
standard work.
All in favor of that motion?
It's a roll call.
Aye.
Oh,
It's a
West,
roll call? Oh, aye.
Rotsler,
Aye.
Basco,
I
Rhodes,
Yes.
Rocco.
Yes.
And may we approve for Blue, the department to,
Well, let's just do that stuff at the end. I want to get
What's the
people home
consent?
with
oh, you
public.
wanna do
Yeah.
that at the end? Okay.
Public comment,
Oh.
which we didn't have on the agenda, but we're gonna
Would you
do.
like to go with my alphabet?
For a second first.
Yes,
Did you just pass the resolution?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
We did not pass this resolution.
Oh, okay, well, that's what I was saying. Somebody
Sally
just
said it
passed
was a
that.
standard workday resolution, that's the one
Yes.
Okay, that's,
that's what we wrote.
Okay.
that's why I
Just wanna
want to
make
make
sure
sure, at some point, that resolution needs to be passed.
We will, we will.
Oh, so
Public comment, and I'm gonna, we do have an adoptive policy that we have a 3-minute rule, and I'm gonna be enforcing that at board meetings at the request of several of the trustees. And that's 3 minutes total, so you can't keep jumping up and getting in another 3 minutes. So, yes, in the back.
Thank you all very much for the meeting and for all of your hard work. I wanted to just show this report to everybody and say, I had comments written, but I'm not gonna read them all. And say that one other cost of water besides the financial cost is aquifer cost. And we really don't know about permanent aquifer damage that could be done. So it's a really important thing to protect our watershed in our area. Our water is priceless. If it's ruined or despoiled, there's no going back. And once again, I'll give everybody, if they like, a copy of this. And this is written by Russell Urban Mead. And this talks about how important it is to protect the watershed and to do proper planning of the watershed. So I just wanted to say that. And again, thank you all for your openness tonight and considering that costs are not just financial.
Thank you. Who's next? Yes, sir.
Just want to make a what-if observation. If you choose the option of the reservoir improvements to Plains Road, you're right, you're making fairly aggressive assumptions that you can go at 400 gallons a minute from a water source that's only been tested at that for a period of about 72 hours. And during that period of 72 hours, the other wells on the aquifer dropped substantially. And not all of them began to recover even at 275 gallons a minute, which was the second rate they dropped at. If you go with that, and that well is unable to produce the 400 gallons a minute required during that 10-day shutdown period,
10 week.
what?
10 weeks.
10 weeks, sorry, 10-week period. What's your backup is my question. I don't expect you to answer it, but I think you need to think about that very seriously. Because you're going to be in a situation where you've put all your eggs in that basket. If that doesn't work out, you're going to have to shut down water to the entire village. A second corollary to that is, even if you make village water available to all the Plains residents, and the ones that accept it, then are going to fare exactly like the town of New Paltz. So if the well fails, they're SOL with the whole village of New Paltz and the town users. But the people who choose to be on their own wells may very well be pumped dry. And if you remember during the first test where there was no warning of, that had to be stopped prematurely because several wells were dewatered. So you may end up with a situation where you have not only gotten the town in a position, your village water district in a position where they're out, but you've now added people on who've opted out of your system, and you're going to end up in a situation where you're going to have to pay damages. Not to mention having to scramble during this 10-week shutdown of how you're going to get water. Now, the Wallkill is probably going to be a better flow source during your shutdown periods. I think you probably need to look at Lloyd as a backup if you go with Plains Road. Because if you're not going to develop the Wallkill, and Plains Road doesn't give you the output.
1 minute, sir.
Right? It doesn't give you the output. You got no backup without Lloyd.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
kind of following on to what that gentleman was saying. There's a recommended standards for waterworks called the 10 state standards. And I believe this has to fit into the review somewhere, but it states that if you have, paraphrase, if you have multiple sources like you're talking about, the Plesser, the reservoir, and one of them fails, the other two have to be able to make up the difference. And I don't see that in the figures that Dave put together, the three together. So that leaves you at a risk factor, which Jason, you had mentioned earlier, trying to figure out how this works. So I'll leave you with a copy unless maybe Russell's familiar with it, or Dave is, but it's called the Recommended Standard for Waterworks. It's revised in 2012. And this was just, I found it on the internet, but it appears to be something that has to fit into the approval reviews. Pardon?
Was that Russell?
The only other thing, so, do you want me to?
Yeah, please.
Would you give it to the clerk or just throw it up here?
What's that?
That is the Bible for the state health department.
So we're familiar with that?
I would say state.
Yeah, okay. Good.
The only other thing I wanted to mention is 2 weeks ago in the review that Dave gave us, I think he stated that in his 610 gallons per minute, he factored in 12 months of annual growth of requirements for water. And I just wondered, maybe you should just ask him to cover the base. Does the 610 include annual growth? So in other words, in 10 years, you need 10 plus 2.2% growth plus 2.2% compounded growth, which means in 10 years you may need, I don't know what that is, 700,000 gallons per minute. So you need to ask that or you're going to be running out just by the growth in the community.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No?
Yes, before you vote on this, we would ask to be on the agenda to do a presentation. There is additional hydrogeological analysis that has been going on, and it is not proven that the 400 gallons per minute can be pumped over the long term. In fact, there is a lot of good evidence that it can't be. So to reinforce what you've just heard, you could be looking at a permanent source where you are going to mine the aquifer and end up in precisely the kind of situation that's been described. And we'd like to make a presentation before you make a vote on this. And the other thing I'd like to say is that if your chief objection to the walk hill is what the annual expense might be, which is obviously an understandable concern, I know you're saying that DEP wants you off the aqueduct, but in point of fact, DEP said the opposite when we raised the question with them. They said they were perfectly happy to remain a source for the village because they derive income from that. So if you are truly considering all possibilities, whether they be temporary or permanent, it's always an option to use the walk hill on a temporary basis and have it as a backup and go back to using the aqueduct you've used for a century.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes.
I have two reminders and a question. First, and I say this with all the respect I can muster, while the final report is impressive in size and weight, we must remind the board and the public that any report by this town engineer has to be viewed with some questions in mind. As stated in our lawsuit, we believe his dual role as advisor and contractor violates state law. And there is clearly a danger that the town engineer's recommendations are based first and foremost on what would be most lucrative for his private engineering firm. So that's the first reminder. The second is the problems we have described to you over the last several months continue to plague the residents of Plains Road. People are still experiencing increased sediment and odor, and wells are still contaminated. At a recent meeting, this board agreed to ask for additional funds to be used for resolving the Plains Road community problems that arose from the pumping that was done at 101 Plains Road. There are many Plains Road homeowners who have been unable to drink their water from us. As a form of remediation, you offered them bottled water, which was certainly a reasonable thing to do. My question is, even though those people are still unable to drink their well water, why have you stopped providing them with safe drinking water?
Tom, do you want to say anything to that?
No.
No? Okay. Tammy?
Thank you. I really appreciate the conversation and the environmental input and the looking at the alternatives. I think it's really important that we have a long-term possibility. I also just want to say that in some of the things I heard tonight, we have manganese and iron on Plains Road too, along with cobblestone. The same stuff that Mr. Claus said was in the walk-up. The same stuff. And we're also dealing with that as well. There was a report, I'm still looking to find this draft from when we first started this whole process. The walk-up will cost $1.2 million. I'm determined to find this. Not 5 million or any of these numbers, but $1.2 million. And I'd like to see if we can find that document. It's not a document, it's a draft. If it was a document, it'd probably be easy to find. So some of these numbers don't seem right to me. There's also another number. I did try to read that report from September 30th. It is just a lot of words, but there are some numbers in there. And it looked like $3 million for the property on Plains Road. So add that to the $4 million, and you get 7. And then add the Plesser, because you cannot do, as we're realizing, the Plains without the Plesser. It's not going to happen as a, might even not even be temporary, but definitely not permanent. So, you know, I don't want to see all these millions being wasted, number one, and I want to see it be successful, number two. And I can't imagine the cleaning of the walk hill costing, you know, like you were saying, millions. It doesn't even make sense. So I'm sure it'll be reasonable. I know we have to wait for the numbers, but I don't think it's going to be crazy numbers. I want to thank Sally, I want to thank Jason, everybody, Ariana, everybody who is really putting in an effort to really look at other options, because it's really important for our community and our environment. Thank you all.
Thanks, Tim. Anyone else? All right, yes.
I think mine is more a question. The 400 gallons a minute, are you talking about only from one wellhead? Now, I know at one point they were pumping from both.
It would be from that site.
From just that one. Because the other one they
from Plains Road, that area.
They were pumping from 2 sources during the time that they let us know that they were pumping. They were pumping from 2 sources. And they turned down the one, they shut it down because they were dewatering the wells. That needs to be looked into, because that second well is in a flood zone. It floods. I live across the street. That floods at least twice a year where that wellhead is. It's right next to the pond, and it floods all the way up to the stream. The one that's up closer to the road doesn't flood. It's not there. But that one shouldn't even be considered, because it will flood.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I can,
yes, please.
I'm not on the village water. I'm just a resident. My child goes to school here. I live here. You know, long-term, it should be a long-term goal and secondary backup to the aqueduct. I deal with the aqueduct daily. We have a whole different system completely off the aqueduct in case the aqueduct goes down. Anything can happen with that. It's pushing 100 years old. These shutdowns may become more frequent with restoration projects. And I think having, you know, the asset, I've said this before, right in this room, having the asset of the walkover right in our disposal is, I think, the simplest, best solution for the village and the town residents who are on the village water. And when you look at the data and analyze the data, make sure you're looking at it, because the city's not shutting down the aqueduct in peak production times. They're not shutting down the aqueduct when water quality in the river will be at its worst, which will be dead of summer, early fall. So they're looking October, November, December, January timeframe when Walpole River is typically frozen over, the watershed's frozen. So you know, contamination will be at its minimal at that point. And again, the data, looking at the data that was in one of these reports, it's analogous to the Hudson River, and Poughkeepsie treats the water every single day. So it's not insurmountable project to take on, and I think it's in the long term, you know, safety of the community. I think it's the best option for you guys. And again, I have no vested interest on a well far away from where you're.
Thank you.
Now the question to pose is, as a resident is sitting off the grid, off the distribution system, aquifers are all connected. So right now my static water level is probably 25 feet down because of the drought, coupled with 600 gallons a minute coming out of the aquifers. Infiltration, I'm not a geologist, but I understand water flows. It's very porous underground, and you know, it could impact my well. So then it's a bigger issue. for a lot more people who aren't going to come to this board meeting. So
Thank you.
good luck.
All right, with that, I'll move. What's that?
I guess
Oh.
I just had one question. I kind of haven't gone to a lot of the, talked with the neighbors a lot about this whole thing, but, so maybe this is something we talked about already, but, also the pumping that was done during a more wet season. It was the spring, and we had a very, very dry summer. So I don't know if that has, I just feel like those tests should be going on all year long to really get more of a, an averaged out or median on how much water you're gonna get out of that site. That just testing it during the wet season is probably not gonna give you a really accurate result.
Well, thank you. Any last comments? All right. Oh, yeah, sorry. And then,
I just have a question about your no comment to Donna's statement and question.
it bore on a lawsuit that the village is currently facing, so I can't answer that question.
No, the question was, what are you going to, will you do anything for the homes that have wells that are still contaminated?
Again, I'll put it in writing and I'll ask our attorney, but since that has to do with the lawsuit that is being brought by the residents of Plains Road, I can't address that comment. And we've got two of our attorneys here nodding when I say that, so.
Are you talking about the Article 78?
Yeah. No,
And notices of claim.
and the insurance company. It's not okay. It's not going to be a debate. You can't. Twist my arm. You can't force me to answer, and I've given you the reason why I can't, or why I feel I can. If you disagree with that, I understand, but that's a position that I have.
Yeah,
Please.
I have a question for Sally. Sally, you said before, and by the way, I was remiss in not thanking you all for the conversation and the dialogue that occurred tonight. I appreciate all of your input. Sally, you said something about, you emphasized offering the Plains Road residents the village rate. I don't know anything about the village rate or the town rate water.
Well, the town has to form special water districts. They do not have a townwide water district, so a special water district would have to be formed. And in the town special water district, they buy water from the village.
Oh, so the price would go up.
And therefore the town rate is much higher.
They pay half again what the village pays.
Yeah. That's why
All right.
I made that part of my qualifier, because we're trying to do a cooperative understanding. But I don't know whether it's legal, and I'm getting a look.
All right. I move we go into executive session to discuss. What are we discussing? Litigation. To confer with counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Don't forget we have resolution drafted by our attorney. Shall I read the whole thing?
I don't care.
No,
Essentially, the resolution with the various whereases resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized by the village board to sign on behalf of the village an amendment to the agreement that is in substantial compliance with the provisions of the summary of supplemental budget modification request dated October 14th, 2014, a copy of which is attached hereto and made a part hereof, and any amounts as set forth therein. And this totals $121,500. I believe that I copied all of you on this, except that the highlighting is in yellow in what
I have mine.
in what I sent you.
Mine's highlighted. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Any discussion?
I think it's
Yes.
roll call, so.
What is a roll call vote?
Please.
No,
Okay.
I have a discussion.
Oh, yeah, what's that, Sally?
When are we going to know whether we are getting money? We are out of money on this project.
I have a note from Dan today saying that although it has not yet been technically approved, he has every reason to believe that it will be approved.
And this is the add-on to that amendment.
Yes, this is amendment number
That's
2.
all I needed.
All right.
All right.
Any other discussion?
No.
I did second.
All in or not all in favor?
West,
Aye.
Rossler,
Aye.
Basco,
Aye.
Rhodes,
Yes,
Rocco.
Yes.
Motion carries. Anything else?
yes.
What's
Two
that?
things. One, I want to bring to the board's attention, and I would like the mayor to ask our planner to pursue. I know we've been talking about various options for funding for our sewer project that is going on Mill Rock Grove and North Oakwood. I discovered a grant program called the Environmental Justice Small Grants Program, and it's absolutely designed for this. The maximum grant is $30,000, but I think it's worth going after because we are under a consent order and have to do it. And so,
we are also a DEC Environmental Justice Community.
So
We're one of them.
I would like I'd like the board to know about this, and I'd like Bren to pursue it. But I also would like to bring to the board's attention Governor Cuomo, I think it was a week and a half ago, in the New York Times was announced that he has all sorts of money for water treatment plants, for fresh water, for solving water problems. And I would like Bren to pursue that and get us at least $10 million.
So, and you have the particular?
That one, she just has to go on the New York government website. This one is US.
So we'll have Bren give us a.
She did so well with the sidewalks.
Yeah.
I'm very confident she can do this.
We'll have to look and give us a report on those funding opportunities.
Here, I'll give you that.
Here.
And the 2015 application request period is open today.
And just to make sure what kind of matching funds they want.
Oh, yeah. And we need to know how much we have to ante up. Good point. Nancy's always asking that question.
All right.
And the
Anything
other
else?
thing I want is your.
I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
I have another item on the agenda that hasn't been addressed yet.
We voted for all of them.
The town, as you know, is supposed to do, or.
We already approved the holiday decorations. We approved the holiday decorations.
We did.
You
Yeah,
were
we did.
While we're
Oh,
waiting
well,
for you.
thank you.
Yeah.
I move to adjourn.
All right. Second. All in favor?
Aye.